Welcome to another session of from Web 2 to Web 3, from Wikipedia to Wikidata. And this week, I'm especially delighted to host Dr. Daniel Mietchen. And I've invited Daniel to talk to you students about three different things because he's doing a lot. And so first, he's going to tell us a bit about who he is and present himself properly and tell us about his work at the University of Virginia and what he's doing there with Wikidata. Second, I've asked Daniel to talk to you about some medical related topics and life sciences and why the work that he's been doing in Wikidata matters so much. He's going to also talk about open data and open and fair science. And lastly, I want Daniel to introduce you to a tool called Scholia. So this is what's on the menu today. We're gonna divide the talk into three sections at least, and I hope you enjoy it. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you introduce yourself properly to the students?
Okay, so my name is Daniel Mietchen. I'm trained as a biophysicist. I studied in Germany mostly, but also did some part of my study abroad. And now I'm working in the United States at the University of Virginia as a data scientist. My main research interests are actually how to improve the research process, how the research ecosystem can be improved, and how openness and sharing and collaboration can help with that. As a sideline, I'm interested in things like data quality and also how, for instance, public health emergencies like the one that we're going through right now affect the willingness and capability of people to share data. One of the interesting bits that I kind of attach me to the Wikimedia platform and community is that there's a lot of collaboration going on. It's multilingual, it's cross-disciplinary. All these things attract me. Even though my initial involvement with Wikipedia started during my PhD, which was in physics. And then while I was doing experimental work all day, I sometimes just needed a break. And so I was browsing this website that had information about things like cities and other things in like 3-4 languages back then. And I just read that for fun, just to appreciate the different kinds of contents that the different languages have about essentially the same topic. And at some point I noticed, oh, they actually have scientific content as well, which is when they got me and I started to contribute. Most of my contributions to the Wiki ecosystem are now via Wikidata. I think you have heard a bit about Wikidata, and I'll show some examples. And this relates to some of my other activities, both at work and as a volunteer in other contexts. So Wikidata is a platform that allows collaboration between people who do not share a common language, for instance, which is very unusual. It also allows collaboration between humans and machine automated tools. And in order for this to work, it needs to be following certain standards so that those standards can be incorporated into the automated tools. And there's like a nice acronym for this. It's called Making Data Fair, FAIR, for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, which means that for a machine collaborator to be able to collaborate with you, that machine, that algorithm, that software needs to be able to find the data that it is supposed to work on. It needs to be able to access the data, and it needs to be able to basically integrate the data, make it interoperable with other kinds of data that it works on. And then all of this should be presented in a way that makes it reusable, and Wikidata really actually excels at that. So at the University of Virginia, I work at the School of Data Science. That is a relatively new school. It was just inaugurated late last year. And there we have a master's degree in data science. Initially, it was only, let's say, on-site. but already for about a year, we have had one that is online. Now, of course, all the on-site things are also moving or have moved online because of the COVID crisis. And so in that School of Data Science, we do lots of teaching, we do research across all disciplines to collaborate with all the other schools at the University of Virginia, which then cover things like engineering, medicine, humanities, architecture, what have you. And we want to learn from the data science that happens in those other fields, and we want to make sure that if there is something interesting data-wise that happens in, let's say, astronomy, that the architects can make use of it and things like that. Wikidata is interesting in this regard because it is cross-disciplinary, just like Wikipedia. Another aspect that's interesting is we have a rather international group of students. Lots of our students actually coming from abroad. And so this means they have different mother tongues. When they need to explain to their parents or to their friends what they're doing, sometimes it's a bit difficult. And so having some projects at hand where you can actually they're talking about would be nice, and especially something that is actually accessible immediately to the people, be it their fellow students or their friends or whoever. And so Wikidata ticks all those boxes, which is why I think it's very nice to be used in those student contexts. Yeah, so maybe that's
Daniel, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you tell the students a bit about the type of projects that the Data Science Center is now, or faculty or program is now involved in? Like in a bit of more details, like what type of things interest you? And you've already mentioned that your program has been working with all disciplines at the university. So what type of projects does that involve?
Yeah, so for the entire school, that's of course it's quite broad. So let me just pick some examples. So we have one project that is about air quality sensing. So we're equipping certain places around the campus and in the town with air sensors to measure particulate matter and other aspects of air quality. And this is in coordination with the city so that in the area we can monitor air quality to a certain standard. And so there we need to set up the sensor network. We need to like think about data quality, calibration of the sensors, things like that, and then integrate that into some dashboard, which then hopefully influences decision-making regarding things that affect air pollution, like for instance, bus transport or any transport or burning of waste or things like that. Then we have other, yeah?
That sounds amazing, but how is it connected to Wikidata exactly?
That project is not connected to Wikidata. Since you were asking for broad overview, I just picked one of those projects, but it is connected to the openness because we're using open hardware sensors here. We have, if we just zoom in on those projects that are related to Wikidata, they're or Wikimedia even. So we had one data science project that was not Wikidata related that much, but was Wikipedia related. That is like analyzing talk page contents on Wikipedia and then more or less predicting when people are going to be blocked because they use improper language or things like that. That was a data science problem. We had a corpus of lots of text on the talk pages on Wikipedia that had to be analyzed. The machine had to learn based on that text and based on the data in the block logs, like which kind of text precedes the blocks, basically, and then based on analysis of other text, predict which accounts are most likely to be blocked next. And so that's the point where some human could intervene and then maybe get those people back to reason, something like this. Then we have other projects going on. There is a project with the Metropolitan Museum of Art where they have a large collection of those paintings, for instance, and they want to tag those paintings properly. So they have some very basic tagging, like who painted the painting and when and things like that, but they don't have much tagging about the content and like what the painting actually shows. And so there we have a group of students as part of their capstone project who are working on basically learning to distinguish a cat from a dog and flowers and a boat and all these kind of different things that might be depicted in a painting, so that the tagging of the painting can be facilitated. So that's another project. Then closer to those that I'm actually involved in, so we have one project that is about connecting our Wikidata with the scholarly literature, basically visualizing the scholarly literature by way of Wikidata. That's the Scholia project we're going to talk about later. We have some projects that deal with visualizing also information about clinical trials. We have some projects that zooms in on, for instance, medical information in the languages of India. Yeah, so maybe that's good enough for a start. And then in the school more broadly, we have other projects going on in that go into like how do you analyze patient data, how do you combine different kinds of patient data, and how do you handle the patient data as privately as necessary. Then the school also has some projects with the Department of Defense, but I'm not involved in those. And things with engineering, computer science, so or humanities, some text mining aspects. So yeah, lots of other projects.